dispute on this issue. Ijma' of the scholars. This now leads us to so we have here the Quran and the Sunnah and Ijma'. So we covered these three topics. Now this brings us to the issue of reason, aql, rational, the reason. And there are numerous proofs from reason. The scholars have mentioned them. We can mention two of them. One from Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, Imam Ahmad, and one from Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah. And in fact, Ibn al-Qayyim is just simply elaborating upon the rational proof brought by Imam Ahmad. So Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, he said in his book, Ar-Raddu al-Jahmiya was Zanadika, a refutation of the Jahmiya and the heretics. He says, when you wish to know that the Jahmi lies upon Allah, when he claims that Allah is in every place and is not in one place exclusive to another, then say to him. So in other words, Imam Ahmad is saying that these people, because in that time the Jahmiya, there were of two types. One type used to say Allah is in everything, Allah is in every place, Allah is in everything. And another type used to say Allah is not in the universe, nor is he outside the universe. Allah is not above the universe, nor is he below the universe. You're saying all these impossible things, right? So Imam Ahmad is saying that when you come to know that this individual is a liar, he's lying about his Lord, then, when he claims that Allah is in every place, then ask him, say to him, did Allah exist when there was nothing? Did not Allah exist when there was nothing? And he will say yes. Obviously, he can only say yes. There's no other answer to this question. Did Allah exist when there was nothing? Of course, Allah existed when there was nothing. So he will say yes. So once he's established this, then you say, when he created something, so now Allah exists and nothing exists. When he created something, did he create it within himself or did he create it outside of himself? So he can now only give three answers. There are only three answers to this question. Right? When Allah created something, did he create it in himself or did he create it outside of himself? So he will only have three answers. If he claims that Allah created the creation within himself, then he is a kafir. Because he's claiming that Allah created the jinns and the devils and Iblis within his own self. This is kufr, this is disbelief. And if he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them outside of himself, then from this point there are two answers. Okay, there are two answers. So either he says Allah created the creation outside of himself and then he entered into his creation. Then he himself entered into his creation. Like what the Christians say, that Isa alayhi salam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he came as Isa alayhi salam into his creation. Right? So now they either give this is a second answer. And again, this is kufr and this is disbelief. Because this would mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it means that he entered into his creation and within his creation is every dirty and filthy thing. And so this is clear, manifest disbelief. Or thirdly, he can only say that Allah created his creation outside of himself and then he did not enter into them. Rather, he is distinct and separate from them. So if he gives this third answer, this means that he's abandoned all of his falsehood. And so this is a proof from reason, from rationale and from reason. And Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he actually elaborates upon this proof. This proof originates with Imam Ahmad, but then he elaborates upon it and he actually has 5 questions. He elaborates upon this and actually has 5 questions. And so this is in a bit more detail. But basically, the only difference between this proof is that first of all we say, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exist only in the mind? Or does he exist in reality? right? Because some things exist only as ideas in our mind. It's only an idea, right? So if I said love or mercy, right? You can't point to love and mercy. You can't say here's love and there's mercy in a bottle. It doesn't exist like that. Love and mercy are ideas in the mind. They exist in the mind only, right? They're ideas. So we're asking, the first question is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala an idea in the mind only? Or does he exist outwardly in reality? So if he says Allah exists in the mind only, he is a kafir, disbeliever. Established his disbelief, right? Meaning that Allah doesn't actually exist. There's only an idea in the mind. If he says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, he exists outside of the mind in actual reality, right? So now this is the first question. He's answered correctly. Then you take him to the next question. So then there's a series of questions. And so the next question basically is, okay, now that you establish that Allah exists outside of the mind, he exists in outward reality, this existence, is it separate from the creation, or is it together with the creation? Is it the same as the creation, or is it a separate one from the creation? So now, obviously, if he says, yes, it is, his existence is the same as the whole of the creation, then he is a disbeliever. He's a disbeliever. Right? He's more disbelieving than the Christian who says that only Isa is Allah. Right? Because here this person is saying that the whole creation is Allah. Right? So either he says this, or he says, yes, I believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his existence is separate and distinct from the existence of the creation. Right? So now this is the second level of the question, a second level of the argument with respect to him. And then if he says, I believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his existence is separate and distinct from the creation, then we say, okay, now, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does he indwell in the creation? Does he come into his creation? Or can the creation come into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? So we already know, we accepted that Allah is separate and distinct from his creation. But the next question now, the third question now is, does the creation enter into Allah, or does Allah enter into the creation? So now we're coming to the level of what the Christians believe, that Allah enters the creation as Isa alayhi salam, or as other people believe that some people, they merge with Allah and they enter into Allah. So again, depending on how he answers, then we say that this is disbelief or this is correct. So anyway, the point being that these are just some rational proofs that we use to establish that if Allah his existence is separate from the creation, he's outside of the creation, he does not merge and mix with the creation, then the conclusion can only be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above his creation. And there are some other rational proofs as well. In fact, there are numerous other ones that other scholars have given, and one of them is indicated by Imam al-Tahawi rahimahullah. We discussed this previously in a lesson when we said that the 6 directions do not encompass him, do not encompass Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a rational proof to show that Allah is above the creation. The 6 directions do not encompass Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a rational proof, and it's a proof against the Ahlul Kalam, And so there are some other proofs like this, and this moves us on now to the issue of the Fitra. And the Fitra is that which every person is created with, and it is something that is deeply rooted in the Fitra. There are certain things, when we say the Fitra, it means that the soul of an individual, there are certain things which are ingrained in that soul, within that soul. And these are many things. These are, to give you an example, one of those things which is ingrained in the soul, and which is a proof, in fact, for Allah's existence as well, is that if you were to, let's say a child is is beaten wrongfully, a child is beaten wrongfully or is hit wrongfully, the child actually, when the child cries, then there's a feeling of injustice. Right? There's a feeling of injustice. The child actually feels it, and in fact, an adult feels it as well. So let's say, for example, if someone was to just stand up and walk up and just give someone a backhand across the face like this, for no reason whatsoever, everybody who's watching, whether he is a Jew, a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, a Buddhist, no matter what he worships, or even if he's an atheist, every single one of them will feel that this is injustice. They will know that this is injustice, right? This is a fitra. Even in an atheist, this is a fitra, right? And likewise, the person who's received the backhand across his face, he will want justice, right? There is an anticipation of justice. In his heart, there's a feeling, hey, wait a minute, something's wrong here. I need justice to be done, right? He wants justice. He feels justice needs to be done. This anticipation of justice is from the fitra as well. And this is common to every single person on the face of this earth, even in the atheist. And this is a proof to the atheist that, you have something within you. Because sometimes these atheists come along and they say, well, we have a morality, we are moral people, we have a sense of right and sense of wrong. Well, that's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put that within you. That's why you still have a sense of morality. So some of them say, well, I don't cheat, I don't steal, I don't drink, I don't I don't kill people, I don't this, whatever, I don't that, I have morals. And he thinks that this somehow is, justifies his atheism. And the fact of the matter is that this is actually the fitra, the natural disposition that Allah created you upon. That's what's coming out through that speech of yours. But it's just that you are, in your intellect, in your mind, or maybe you have arrogance, there's something wrong with you. But these things that you're saying, they are just from the fitra. So that's an example of something from the fitra. And also from the fitra is that everyone knows, that the soul recognizes that which is originated, that which comes to be, that it has to have one who brought it into existence. Al-muhdath, that which comes to be, la budda lahu min muhdith. It must have one who brings it into existence. This is another thing that every person's soul is from the fitra. Like, for example, if someone sees like a phone on the table, then obviously someone knows that phone must have been put there on the table. This is just simple, basic, innate. You don't even have to think. This is not even reason. It's not even reason. This is not even aql that you have to reason that this is the case. Rather, the fitra knows that this is the case. That if there's something here, clearly someone put that there. If there's a glass of water on the table, clearly someone put that on the table. This is like from fitra knows this, without even thinking with the reason. So when the eyes see the whole of the creation, then the fitra knows that this creation came to be and someone put it into existence. This is another thing which is from the fitra, And a third thing which is from the fitra is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above His creation. Every soul knows that Allah is above His creation. And so here there is a well-known, famous story. This is a great story, and true narration. And this is a dialogue that took place between a person of the Sunnah, a person of the Sunnah, and an Imam of Kalam, of Ilmul Kalam. And this Imam of Ilmul Kalam, he's someone famous. He's known as Abu al-Mu'ali al-Juwayni. Al-Juwayni, he was from the 5th century of Hijrah, and he used to be known as Imamul Haramain. He's from the scholars of the Ash'aris. And in that time, obviously these people, they used to deny that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above His throne because of the ilmul kalam, this poison that came into Islam and into the people of Islam. And there was a discussion. So Al-Juwayni, he was giving a lesson in his dars, in his masjid. He was on the pulpit, and the Imam is known as Al-Hamadani. There's an Imam known as Al-Hamadani, Ali Al-Hafiz, Abu Ja'far ibn Ali ibn Abu Ali ibn Abi Ali Al-Hafiz. His name is Al-Hamadani. So what happened is that he was mentioning this verse, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa, that Ar-Rahman ascended above the throne. This is one of our proofs to prove that Allah is above His throne. So when he was explaining this verse, Al-Juwayni, he said, there was Allah whilst there was no throne. And what he means by this is what he's really trying to say here is that Allah didn't do an act which is istiwa, because Allah existed and then the throne didn't exist. And then the throne existed and Allah was still where He was. Right? This is what he's trying to basically put across. Right? He's trying to explain the verse away. The verse says, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa, that Ar-Rahman ascended above the throne. So we believe Allah ascended above the throne. We don't know how Allah ascended above the throne, because we don't have that knowledge. We don't know how Allah's essence is. So therefore we do not know how Allah's attributes and His actions are. We don't know that. But he's trying to explain the verse away by saying, there was Allah whilst there was no throne. And then he started waffling. So the narrator is saying, then he started wandering in his speech, going here and going there, not really coming with anything. So then he says, I said to him, Al-Hamadani now, he says, I said to him, okay, we already know what you're saying. We already understand, know all of that. But can you escape from something which is a durura? A durura meaning that something that is so compelling that you can't escape from it. So then Al-Juwayni says to him, what do you mean? Explain this speech to me. What do you mean? This durura that you're talking about, this necessity that you're speaking of. So he said, no person who has knowledge, no person ever moved his tongue, right? No person ever said, "O Lord, Ya Rabbi," right? So he never moved his tongue. He never ever moved his tongue, except that before he moved his tongue and said, Ya Rabbi, in his heart inwardly there was a qasd. There was a desire, a qasd. And this qasd, this desire, it didn't proceed to the right, or to my right, which is to this way to you, or to the left, or, but rather it only desired what is above. Right? In other words, when one of us, when we say Allahumma, or when we say Rabbi, Ya Rabb, when we make this speech, before we even made this speech, inwardly, there was a desire that is seeking above. Right? No one ever seeks this way, or to the left, or to the right, but he knows in his soul that it's only seeking upwards. Right? Everyone knows and feels this. It's from the Fitra. And so he says to him, so now, can you escape? Now you try to escape from this qasd. You tell me, you try to, where's the escape from this qasd? So inform us so that we can finish off this discussion of above and below. This is what he said to Al-Juwayni. Al-Juwayni, he is from the heads, the imams of Ahlul Kalam. He has many books. He's written many books, Al-Irshad and many other works. And these works are the works which are depended upon by these people today, the Ash'aris and other than them. He is an imam. And when Al-Hamadani said this, what happened is, what happened is that Al-Hamadani, when he's waiting for this answer, he began to cry. He actually started crying. And then the people began to cry as well. They began to cry as well. Because obviously this now is a great issue now. What's the answer? And they all know that they feel this in their souls. They know it's true. What this man said, they know it's true. And so, what happened, Al-Juwayni, he began to hit his seat with his sleeve. He used to wear this sleeve, so he went with his sleeve. He went like this onto his seat like this, and he began to cry out, and he said, Hiran, Hiran, meaning confusion. Meaning, I'm confused. And so before, when he was calm and giving his lesson, all that calm was now gone. Now he's utterly confused. Hayran, this is what he's saying. And then now he began to be perplexed and startled. And then this great commotion started to take place in the mosque. Everyone was waiting for the answer and seeing him perplexed and bewildered and, going like this and saying Hayran, whatever. And then he didn't answer. He didn't give any answer. He walked down from the, his pulpit, and then he came to Al-Hamadani, and he said, "Oh my beloved, he said, oh my beloved, confusion, bewilderment, meaning I'm confused, I'm bewildered." And then afterwards, all of the associates of Al-Juwayni, they began to say that Al-Juwayni was saying that Al-Hamadani has perplexed me. Hayyarani Al-Hamadani. That Al-Hamadani, he's confused me. So you see how a man who builds his foundation upon ilmul kalam, which is ilmul kalam, he can't deny the fitrah, he can't reject the fitrah. No matter how sophisticated and intelligent these people claim to be with the ilmul kalam and whatever else, they cannot deny what Allah has ingrained in every single soul of this knowledge, that when you seek Allah, you're seeking from above. And so this is a proof from the fitrah. This is a proof from the fitrah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above His creation. And with that, we finish with one more story. In fact, we finish with one more story, which is a story that some of the scholars mention. Those who, when the scholars used to travel in the old times, the scholars of Islam, and they used to leave the Muslim lands, they used to go past the borders of the Muslim lands, and they used to go into the lands of the non-Muslims. And sometimes they used to go into the land of the Turks. And in that time, it used to be known, what we know today to be Russia. Right? Because those regions, those people living in those regions used to be known as the Turks. But that region was known as what today we know to be Russia. And so some of these scholars used to write that when they were sent by some of the Khalifas, by some of the Abbasi Khalifas, the Khulafa in the Abbasid Khulafa, they used to be sent by the rulers to go towards these lands in Russia and where these people used to be. And they used to write that we found a people didn't used to worship Allah, used to believe anything, didn't used to worship Allah, and neither did they have any like a messenger that was sent, like a messengership. And they said, however, what we did see from them is that whenever a calamity befell them, whenever, for example, there was a famine or hardship and there was no rain or things of this nature, they would come out to the open ground and they would raise their hands to the sky and they would look to the sky hoping for something. Remember, these are people who don't actually worship Allah. And as if they were asking for relief to come from the sky. And so you see that this feeling is something that is deeply ingrained within the soul, until even an atheist, and these are like stories of people where they admit, like for example, an atheist who's upon a plane, and then his plane crashes, or maybe he's in the ocean or something, drowning or whatever, and what he inside, whilst he's going through this calamity, right, inside his heart there is a feeling and a hope that something can save him. There is a feeling and a hope that something can save him. He actually has this feeling, and that feeling in fact is a proof of the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he feels, and inwardly he has a hope and anticipation. He thinks there's something out there that can help him. And when he thinks and when he hopes, obviously he's always looking, his hope is in the direction of above. Always in the direction of above. Although he won't say, this is Allah, this is the creator that I'm, but he knows that there is something in which he is placing his hope and his anticipation. To us, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know that to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But to the atheist, he still has that feeling. That feeling still occurs in his heart. And that is from the Fitra. So number one, he anticipates that there's something that can help him, and he seeks it in the direction of above. Right? All of this is from the Fitra. So we see that this is something that cannot be denied by anyone. No one from the Ahlul Kalam can deny this, and they have no answer to this. We speak here of the Ash'ariyya, Maturidiyya, Jahmiyya, Mu'tazila, those people who are present today and who deny that Allah is above His throne. So with that we conclude today's lesson. This was basically looking at the proofs of Allah's Uluww, and they are from the Quran, the Sunnah, Ijma', Aql and Fitra. There are 5 types of proofs for Allah's Uluww. And inshallah ta'ala we'll continue with the rest of our discussion in the next lesson. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. There's a question just very quickly about the martyrs who are slain, and it is claimed about them that their bodies are preserved. That which we know from the Sunnah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prevented the earth from consuming the bodies of the prophets and messengers. And as for those besides them, Allahu A'lam, we don't know of any such text or any such thing that states about the bodies that they will be preserved, even if they are martyrs. We know that about the prophets in particular, that their bodies are preserved. This is a textual evidence. And as for other than them, then we do not know of any textual evidence that in which there is, which is claimed as such for those besides the prophets and the messengers, and Allah knows best. Okay, inshallah, there won't be any lesson for the next couple of weeks until the new year now, inshallah ta'ala. So we'll take up our discussion then, which will probably be the first or second week of January, inshallah ta'ala. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.